Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm gonna be ranking my top 10 favorite metal genres. Now, this is my third video where I've spoken about heavy metal in general, and I think this will be the last one for a while because, making these videos is quite an exhausting process and I want to move on to other stuff now. I'll come back to this maybe later, at some point during the year. So I'm going to just talk about which genres are my favorites and why. This won't be a long video like the last one. I had to split that one in two, so I don't think you'll have to worry about that. But please keep in mind, this is just my opinion, and it's very likely to change over time. So let's get started. Coming in at number 10 is Grindcore. Now, Grindcore derived from, genres like punk rock, crust punk, thrash metal, and just heavy metal in general. It's like a fusion of all these genres. It had the typical blast beats you'd expect out of death metal. The guitars were very down-tuned, the tempos are very high, and the songs were very fast. The vocals were usually high-pitched, shrieking vocals. And when you think of this genre, you think of bands like Napalm, who was one of the first bands in this genre. Their first album, Scum, is a primary example and a landmark of Grindcore. It had 28 songs, but these were very short songs, so it all came to about 33 minutes. In fact, they hold the Guinness World Record for the shortest song ever. The song You Suffer. It's like 1 second. I could show it to you, but I don't know if the video will get claimed. And there are other subgenres of grindcore, like death grind, gore grind, porno grind, which, is inspired by pornography. I don't know if I can talk about that on this channel. But yeah, that is a subgenre of grindcore. And there are other bands you think of, like Cattle Decapitation. But this particular band, as well as Napalm Death, eventually shifted away from grindcore. They used it as a starting point for their careers, and given where they ended up later, I think it was the right choice. The reason why this isn't any higher on the list is because when I listen to an album of grindcore, after a while everything starts to sound kind of the same, and it can be a bit of a turn off for me, which is why I usually listen to individual songs from time to time. But other than that, I think it's a very underrated genre, and if you're looking for something wild, over the top, and insane, then this is for you. Coming in at number 9 is power metal. Now, power metal is a genre that combines traditional heavy metal with speed metal, and it does have some symphonic context. It's a bit more melodic than most genres, and it's inspired by folk tales, classic books like Lord of the Rings, and so on. Aside from Blind Guardian, there's also bands like Halloween and my favorite power metal band, Hammerfall. If you've never experienced heavy metal before, then they're a cool band to get into, and this is a nice genre to get started. It's not something I listen to all the time because of all the heavier, more extreme genres that I'm into now, but it was a good way for me to get started, and I think it'll do the same for you. Coming in at number 8 is black metal. Now, when I say black metal, I'm not just referring to old school traditional black metal. I'm also referring to ambient black metal, atmospheric black metal, and most importantly, blackened death metal. That alone could have made this list, but I do like some of the other subgenres of black metal. I just feel that it's a little bit more vast compared to the subgenres below it. The interesting thing about black metal is that at a time when people were starting to get tired of death metal, black metal burst onto the scene, and it was new, it was fresh, it was exciting. But why? Well, the artists all wore corpse paint, the production was very raw, very lo-fi, the song structures were unconventional, the music videos were very low budget, and they're kinda cringy by today's standards. But it was also some of the darkest, most evil sounding music ever. It was labeled as being anti-religious, satanic, but if you put all that aside, it's entertaining. if that's your thing. And when you think of black metal, you think of the Pioneers, Mayhem, and solo acts like Bosom, just created by Varg Vikernes. And the music he creates is usually ambient black metal. And even the first wave of black metal pioneers, like Venom, even though Venom's a thrash metal band. And then you get the kings of the genre, in my opinion, Behemoth. These guys are a blackened death metal band. They have taken the genre to another level. This is my favorite subgenre of black metal, and everything else is great, but just not as good as blackened death metal. Coming in at number 7 is traditional heavy metal. This was the foundation of heavy metal, and it derives from blues rock, psychedelic rock, acid rock, and at the time it was the heaviest thing around. And when you think of the Pioneers, you think of Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, and Led Zeppelin, and it's debatable on who really invented heavy metal. I'm gonna say Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath not only pioneered this particular genre, but also many other subgenres that derive from it. It's a lot simpler compared to the heavier, more extreme genres that would show up later on throughout the years. If you want to break from extreme metal, then it's nice to give this a shot if you're interested and you've never experienced heavy metal in its rawest form, you know, the roots of the genre, as I mentioned. There are some other bands like Motorhead, AC/DC, although they're more of a hard rock band, but still, they're enjoyable. Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, all those guys. And every once in a while, I feel like I need it, and sometimes I can fall asleep to it, in a good way. So, I'm gonna put it here at number 7. Coming in at number 6 is thrash metal. Now, thrash metal emerged in the early 80s and led to what I think is the golden age of heavy metal as a whole. It's known for its fast percussive beats, its double bass drumming, its low register guitar riffs, and its shredding style lead guitar work. Just look up any of Metallica's guitar solos from Kirk Hammett and you'll understand what I'm talking about. When you think of thrash metal, you think of, as I mentioned, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax, or as many call them, the Big Four of thrash metal. And even Venom, who I mentioned earlier, they practically pioneered the genre when it was initially just a cross between heavy metal and speed metal. This is a genre that will never ever die, it'll never fizzle out, even when the Big Four are long gone. Though there are some genres I just find myself revisiting over and over again more often than thrash metal. So yeah, it's at my number 6. Coming in at number 5 is industrial metal. Now imagine a genre that consists of your typical metal guitar riffs, distorted vocals, sampling, synthesizers, sequences, you know, just a mix of metal and industrial music. Well, that actually exists in case you haven't checked it out. And I think even if you don't like metal, if you like electronic music or dance music, maybe you'll be interested in it. Examples of industrial metal bands are 9 Inch Nails, KMFDM, Ministry, Godflesh. There's also Marilyn Manson, and even Korn tried out industrial metal on 2 of their albums. Though my personal favorite has been KMFDM so far. They're not an industrial metal band, but that is one of the subgenres they tackle, and they do it pretty well. So yeah, this is my number 5 because of just how unique it is. Coming in at number 4 is death metal. This is the genre that got me into the world of extreme metal. This style of metal is known for its deep growling vocals, chromatic chord progressions, heavy drumming that incorporates blast beat techniques and double kick bass drums, abrupt tempo changes, minor keys or a tonality, and heavily distorted low register guitar riffs. The lyrics in death metal deal with things like, slasher film violence, politics, nature, philosophy, religion, society, and stuff like that. And, when you look at death metal bands, we're talking Possessed and Death, who started the whole thing. That was back in the 80s. So come the 90s, you've got Cannibal Corpse, Deicide, Morbid Angel, Cryptopsy, Suffocation, Septic Flesh, Obituary, Vader, and so on. There's a ton of death metal bands to look out for. Metal Blade Records, probably the most recognizable extreme metal label out there. You should check out some of the bands who are under that label. This could have been my number one, but there were some other genres that kind of grew on me to the point where they actually surpassed death metal. But yeah, that's my number 4. Coming in at number 3 is groove metal. Now, groove metal is something that derived from extreme metal, like thrash metal and death metal, but the rhythms are more syncopated, meaning they're a little bit more groovy, to be exact, and they're less heavy. Well, some of them can be heavy. I like a little bit of groove in my metal sometimes. I guess that's why I put it above death metal, because every once in a while I get tired of the blast beats from most extreme metal genres. And examples of groove metal bands are 6 Feet Under, if you don't consider them to be a death metal band, Lamb of God, Sepultura, Pantera, who pioneered groove metal, and there's a ton of others. If you're looking for something groovy, check out groove metal and check out some of these bands I mentioned. Coming in at number 2 is melodic death metal. Now, melodic death metal is pretty much death metal, but with more melodic guitar riffs, and that can be refreshing every once in a while if, like I said earlier, if you get tired of just, regular extreme metal, like death metal, thrash metal, and so on, this is a good sort of detour. Some of the bands that pioneered melodic death metal include At the Gates, Dark Tranquility, and one of my all-time favorite bands, In Flames, and they're all from Sweden. Like I said in my previous video, Sweden is just full of talent when it comes to music, especially metal. There are so many other bands I want to look at when it comes to this genre. I cannot wait to do that in the future, and I wonder what the genre will be like years from now. But my number 1 pick is going to be progressive metal. Now, progressive metal is a fusion of progressive rock and heavy metal. The first band to really pioneer progressive metal was Death, and this was happening around the 90s or so. But when bands like Opeth tackled this genre, they took it to another level. They really, really did. There's such a diverse range of subgenres that come to mind when I think of progressive metal. Acoustic, jazz, blues, folk. It's just very diverse, especially with Opeth. And it's a genre that I can fall asleep to. I just love to do that, don't I? But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Those are my top 10 favorite metal genres. Next time, I'm going to be reviewing Stephen King's Cell. I finished the book a few weeks ago and I'm ready to review it. So thank you all for watching. Please be sure to like the video, share it and subscribe, and hit the notification icon. Be safe during this time, and I'll see you soon.